Good morning, friends. My name is Allison Murphy. My pronouns are she, her, and I want to welcome you all here today. If you're here for the first or second time, welcome if you are joining us after a break and coming back, perhaps from warm, sunny Hawaii. We're all jealous. And welcome to those of you who come every weekend and never miss being here with us, either in person or online. My family and I have been coming to Beacon since January of 2017, after the 2016 election, when I think unmoored was probably the feeling that we were experiencing. And we come not every weekend, but most weekends. And one of the things that keeps me coming back is the lessons that I have learned, not just about Unitarian Universalism, but also about other religions. And those lessons about other religions often come not from up here, sorry, Emily, but through a very intelligent, very handsome, very smart Beacon member, not my husband, Tim, but Sean, my almost 9-year-old here, who is an encyclopedia of knowledge and will sometimes say to me out of the blue in the car while we're driving, "Hey, Mama, did you know that there's a religion where you have to fast for an entire month?" He has taught us about Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. He's taught us how to play dreidel. We were recently looking at a magazine that had pictures of a Holly celebration, and he said, "Oh yeah, this is coming up again. I learned about this in RE." So I am grateful for all of the lessons that he has learned through Thule and Jermaine, and that is why we force him to come with us every weekend to take RE classes. So thank you for being here with us. If you're here for your first or second time and you'd like a tour of the building, afterward you can join Alejandro, who's poking his head in the door right now. You can find him afterward for a tour. And now I would like to invite David Gordon to come forward to light the chalice.
Good morning. I'm David Gordon. My pronouns are he and him. And our chalice lighting this morning comes from the Reverend Amy Carol Webb, who serves the River of Grass UU congregation in Broward County, Florida. It's entitled Sacred Unknowing. We light this flame for the art of sacred unknowing. Humbled by all that we cannot fathom in this time, we come into the presence of what we do know, perhaps the only thing we can ever know, that love is now and forever, the only answer to everything and everyone in every moment.
Good morning. My name is Misa Iwama, and I'm the Director of Music Ministry. I'm happy to be here with John O'Neill on piano. And also, we have some guests up here in our music loft today. So I'm here with Melanie Davis and Joel Botner and Dennis Mannion singing and playing guitar. So you'll be able to hear them specifically later in the service. But we are going to start this morning by singing Breaths, which is in your hymnal. It's 1001. And Breath starts with a refrain. That means it's the same kind of piece of section of music that comes back each time. And I invite you to sing the whole thing or just join in the refrains if that is what you feel like starting out your morning with.
Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Ah, whoosh, ah, whoosh. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead are not under the earth. They are in the rustling trees. They are in the groaning woods. They are in the the crying grass, they are in the moaning rocks. The dead are not under the earth. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath where the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Ah, whoosh, ah, whoosh. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead have a pact with the living. They are in the woman's breast. They are in the wailing child. They are with us in our homes. They are with us in this crowd. The dead have a pact with the living. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Za, whoosh, ah, whoosh, za, whoosh, ah, whoosh, za, whoosh, whoosh, ah, whoosh, whoosh.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Kit Simpson. I am one of your chaplains here at Beacon. Chaplains extend the care of the community through calls and visits and shared rituals such as the community candlelighting that we're about to celebrate. Together, we light candles of sorrow, joy, and gratitude. And today, we light a candle of celebration for everyone who is turning 90 years old. Yay! She assured me it was okay to name her. Don't worry. And we light a candle of gratitude for all of our leaders, for the board members who gathered in retreat this weekend, for those of us who are considering stepping into leadership roles in our faith community, and for those ancestors who serve this congregation faithfully. For all of this and for so much more, I invite you now to come forward and light a candle in our sanctuary or wherever you want.
Would you please join in singing hymn 1031, Filled with Loving Kindness?
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
Good morning. I'm Jean Crichton. Thank you. And I have been a member of the Afternoon Music Board for about 20 years, just about as long as I've been at Beacon. But, you know, isn't it great to be back together in the sanctuary, all together to see old and new friends, to reflect on the energy and peace of our beloved space? With Helen Care's wonderful mural in front of us, we can relax, listen to the service in person, and listen to the music. Music has always been an important part of the religious life of Beacon. We almost take it for granted that we can count on hearing the beauty of Misa's voice and the wonderful sound of our Steinway piano, played by John or Vicky. And last week, we got to hear solos by our own Rosina Hill Jackson and improvisations by celebrated jazz artist Cyrus Chestnut. Wow. Afternoon Music was founded in 1982 as Beacon's classical music series, and we've added an annual jazz concert. In the 41 years since, we have continued to present amazing concerts at reasonable prices with outstanding classical and jazz artists in our own jewel box of a hall. Musicians love to play here. The acoustics are superb, and audiences are invited to meet and greet the performers at a wonderful reception afterwards. And I usually bake cookies. On March 12th, 2 weeks from today at 3 p.m., Afternoon Music presents the first of its concerts for the 2023 season, a string quartet program led by Eric Wyrick, the concertmaster of the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra. I'll be in the lobby selling tickets after the service today. You can also buy tickets online, and the recitals are free for students. Come and join us. You may think you don't like classical music, but you might surprise yourself when you settle in and join our musical community on March 12th. And now I'll turn the mic over to Misa.
Thank you, Jean. And if that is not enough reason just to come to hear the music, I will say if you come to the concert, you'll be able to taste Jean Crichton's cookies. So the concert on March 12th includes a piece by Florence Price, who is actually the first Black female composer to have a symphony performed by a major American orchestra. She was in a wonderful community, friends with Langston Hughes, and by coming to a live concert, you'll be able to hear a quartet performed the way she would have heard it. That's the beauty of a live concert. It's so immediate, it's visceral, and you feel the energy along with the other people. And you don't even have to drive to the NJPAC or to New York City. They're coming to us. And so I hope you will join. You know, afternoon music has really undergone some transformations over the years. As Jean said, you know, it used to be just classical. Now there's a jazz concert. But other changes are now we have a website. Now, importantly, we are a supporting organization of Beacon, just as Beacon Hope and Equity is a supporting organization. That means that we are part of Beacon. And the part of Beacon we are is the part that values the meaning and the beauty of live music. You know, Henry David Thoreau said that when I hear music, I am related to the earliest of times and to the latest. And so I invite you to come to our concert and to be related to Florence Price's work, to Dvorak's work, to Mendelssohn's work, and to our current beautiful community. Thank you.
In support of ministries, in support of ministries like Afternoon Music, our morning offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Paul and Silas bound in jail, had no money for to go their bail. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on. Paul and Silas thought they was lost, dungeon shook and the chains come off. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Freedom's name is mighty sweet, and soon we're gonna meet. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on. I got my hand on the gospel plow, won't take nothing for my journey now. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on.
The only chain that a man can stand is that chain of hand on hand. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on.
Hold on.
I'm gonna board that big greyhound, carry the love from town to town. And keep your eyes on the prize, hold on.
Hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Now the only thing I did was wrong, staying in the wilderness too long. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on. Now the only thing we did was right, was the day that we started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. The only thing we did was right, was the day that we started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize.
prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
Good morning. My name is Wim Sweldens, and I'm your worship associate today. And we now have a brief moment of meditation. Now, before we do that, I have to tell you a story, which is how we got to this moment, or how I got to this moment. And something very strange happened. I got an email from Emily about this meditation last week, Thursday, about 10 days before the service, which is very unusual. Usually I get, as a worship associate, the order of service about 10 hours before the service. And as you know, I'm sometimes not very good in responding on looking at email, but I'm like, I gotta pay attention to this because it's 10 days, this is gonna be trouble. And there's a message from Emily, says, Wim, I just want you to do the meditation, and I'll send you a text to read, and just read the text. I'm like, easy. I got 10 days. What could go wrong? So I ignored every other email for 10 days. Until about 10 hours ago last night, when I looked at the emails, there's a few more emails from Emily. One of them says, here's the actual text. I'm like, okay, that's easy. And it's actually a version of the famous Psalm 23 of the Bible, rewritten by a famous Unitarian for the 2017 UUA General Assembly. And it's absolutely beautiful. I'm like, okay, I got this. Then there's another email from Emily, and it says, oh, by the way, the song right before the meditation is going to be Eye on the Prize, Hold On. And if you could sort of work that in there, that would be good too. I'm like, oh, okay. And then there's another email from Emily and says, by the way, if you just want to write something entirely on your own, that's fine too. So now I got Psalm 23. I got the UUA version of Psalm 23. I have the song, and I have a completely blank sheet of paper. And now I'm worried. Now, what do you do when you're in a time crunch and you have to write something? What do you do? Panic. That was the first thing I did. Then what do you do after that? Where do you get help? In the old days, it would be Google, but now there's something smarter than Google out there. ChatGPT. So I'm like, okay, I log on to ChatGPT. And I work with ChatGPT regularly. You have to sort of give it a lot of context before it helps you. So like, hello, I'm Wim. I'm the worship associate tomorrow morning at the Unitarian service. The minister told me to do something with Psalm 23. It's got to be Unitarian. It's got to have elements of this song in it. Can you write something? And he wrote something. And it was actually not bad at all. And I'm like, this is actually good, but I'm like, I need a little bit more Psalm 23 in there. And so it wrote another version, and it was better. And I'm like, this is really good, but I need a little bit more of the song in there. And it rewrote it again, and it was really good. And I'm like, this is incredible. I'm like, I'm good. I got a beautiful piece of text. I'll read it tomorrow morning. What could go wrong? I woke up this morning. I couldn't read it. I couldn't read it. So I wrote something. I wrote it myself. It's not beautifully written. It's not super eloquent. But it comes straight from the heart, and it'll be delivered from my soul. So let's get ready for a moment of meditation. Take a comfortable position in your chair. Close your eyes if you want to. Take a deep breath. Bring your full presence and awareness into this space and into this moment. Love is the prize. Love is the prize I shall not want. Love tells me to keep my eyes on the prize and not want. Love tells me to hold on and not want. Love tells me to lie down in green pasture. It lays beside me and tells me to not want. Love restores my soul, makes me a better person, leads me in the path of righteousness. And when I walk to the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for love will walk with me, comfort me, tell me to hold on and not want. Love will set a table for me with my enemies, hold me and tell me to hold on. I will dwell in love for the remaining days of my life and not want. Amen.
You never go wrong when you speak from the heart. Thank you. And I have a decidedly different memory of those emails. Folks, February. Did you miss it? Whoosh. I did. Way back at the beginning of February, which was like 2 days ago, we heard a news report that a candy company was changing up the messages on candy hearts for Valentine's Day. It took me back to my college days. My roommate's name was June. And one day, June came back to our room with a bag of candy hearts. And I just want you to know I got some for social hour today. So just... you can play this game that we played. She poured them into 2 cups, and she set the 2 cups, one on my desk and one on her desk. And then we would quietly be studying away when one of us would ask another one a question, and you had to try to answer the question with an answer from a candy heart. What did you get for the 3rd question? Hubba hubba. Are you going to the dining hall for dinner tonight? Love you. You know, you got the drift of this, right? It was sometimes very hard. The hearts had all the normal responses, but my favorite candy heart, which unfortunately isn't up there, was one that just said, no. No. Now, I had to say, there has to be a story in some marketing room somewhere where they're coming up with what should go on these candy hearts, and there has to be someone there with a story who is like, no, has to be on there. It has to be. And I will say, as a female-identified college student living in a patriarchal system, I needed to have that no on my candy heart. Interestingly, there was no yes. No yes. So I met June on the first day of college. She lived across the hall from me, and a small group from our hall ate meals together in our dorm every single night, especially for that first month when you don't know anybody. That transition can be really hard, moving from high school to the next phase of your life, whether that is actually college or working or a service-oriented position. It's a tricky one because for many of us, not all of us, but for many of us, we have been born and raised into communities. Whether we moved once, twice, or 3 times, we've had time to deepen our sense of community and friendships. And yet here we are moving into the next phase, and we don't know how to build community. And luckily, in some of these cases, there is a structure. There is a structure. But it forces you to ask the question, where do you go to find community? Within those first few weeks, our college held all sorts of events, helping us connect with other students and to really create this sense of belonging. At dinner one night, our dorm group was asking one another if we were going to the Greek life orientation event. After all, we had been to all of the fairs for college organizations, intramural sports, and campus jobs. And people went back and forth in the conversation. And that's when June, someone that I had admired and respected almost immediately, said, "I'm not going. I'm not buying my friends." You can imagine the conversation went silent. A hush fell over us, and the conversation on Greek life abruptly ended. All of us in that moment, I think, were wondering and deciding for ourselves, is that what Greek life is? Buying our friends? Both June and I were on scholarships, not to mention taking out college loans. Every day, or every semester on registrar day, there was always a moment where the registrar said we didn't have enough money and a panic ensued. It all worked out, but every year that panic happened. And we were at an expensive liberal arts school. When my dad first arrived on campus, he looked around and said, "Your fellow students are driving cars that took me 20, 30, 40 years to be able to afford." Money was difficult, every penny designated, and paying an additional fee for community was not in our budgets. Education was the priority. June's frame of Greek life as an avenue for buying friends allowed us to blame the system rather than feel excluded because we didn't have enough. It was a very good defense mechanism and a justice issue. I continue to have a sour taste in my mouth about Greek life, not to mention other organizations where you have to give money in order to belong. That is until one day, one of our Beacon's own youth alumni walked into my office on his Thanksgiving break from his freshman year at college. He had been an excellent co-leader the year prior in our youth group, leading our youth from a tumultuous transition of growth from a group of 12 to a group of 40. It was bumpy. I'll never forget that day. I asked him how college was going, and he said with absolute pride, like almost beaming, that he had joined a fraternity. And I said, "Oh no, you're buying your friends." It was out of my mouth before I could shut it. The smile on his face evaporated, and I mean, I cannot tell you how terrible I felt. And I'll never forget what he said next. He said, "Emilie, you'll never find a community that is absolutely free. Any community that is worth being a part of is worth giving to, and that includes money." And then he said, "Do you know who I learned that from?" I guess I had emphasized repeatedly to our youth that we give to what we love. We show up, we get our hands dirty, we give what we have to give. And now here he was teaching me to believe in my own words. I apologized, and I asked him to tell me more about what he loved about his fraternity. He said to me later, "What I learned is that you have to look for a community that is guided by a purpose that is close to your heart." It reminds me of the Brandi Carlile song. It came up yesterday. The line from the Brandi Carlile song is, wherever is your heart, I'll call home. Wherever is your heart, I'll call home. You looked at each other. Was that like a wedding song for you all? Anyway, sorry to put you on the spot, but like I notice these things and I'm like, I gotcha. So I think that this is important to remember, especially in this age of isolation, that as we are searching for community, we need to remember this line. So I wonder if you'll do a call and response with me throughout this sermon. I'm going to say, wherever is your heart, and I'd like for you to say, we'll find home. Let's just try it. Wherever is your heart, we'll find home. Wherever is your heart, we'll find home. You guys got this. You're done. Where are our hearts, beloved? Is it possible that our hearts will lead us to belonging and community, a sense of home? Where do you go to find community? Casper ter Kuile and Angie Thurston published a paper called How We Gather, telling stories of people who are building communities that function as religious institutions, churches, synagogues, temples, how they once functioned, but they are not religious institutions. When they asked people, where do you find belonging, one phrase they heard over and over again: CrossFit is my church. Okay, some of you know this. CrossFit is a fitness center. People show up to get physically healthier. That is their purpose. But they stay for the deeply engaged and committed community that CrossFit fosters. As one person said, CrossFit is family, laughter, love, and community. I can't imagine my life without the people I've met through it. And yes, they pay for that community. Wherever is your heart, we'll find home. Casper and Angie also discovered an organization called Artisans Asylum, a makerspace in Massachusetts. Do you all know what a makerspace is? Some yes, some no. It is now 13,000 square feet of space with studios and project areas and workstations where people, some of them artisans and some of them just regular folks who want to be creative, rent out space to create art, to learn new skills, and to grow businesses. On the surface, it is a business. Casper and Angie tell us to go deeper. They say the creative spirit that runs through the space is embodied in the generosity of its members. Individuals don't just come to the Artisans Asylum to create their own art and focus on their own art. Instead, it is a collective community that is working together to help both new and longtime artisans reach for what wants to be created in the world. They become mentors to one another, offering teaching. They teach new skills. They encourage one another to try new things. On Thanksgiving, the whole community gathers for a giant potluck they call Makers Giving, where the tables have all of their artwork right next to home-baked goods. Sounds lovely. And because the space is open 24/7, the makers who are housing insecure find respite at the Artisans Asylum. And the larger community has become so aware of this that they have become passionate about advocating for better public housing. On the surface, it's a business, one that its members invest in. But by showing up, getting their hands dirty, and giving what they can, they create community. Wherever is your heart, will find home. Kim Samuel is an activist and educator who had the honor of meeting Nelson Mandela at a small, intimate dinner in 2002. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being at that table? She tells the story of meeting him in her book, On Belonging, Finding Connection in an Age of Isolation. As they gathered around the table, one of her friends asked Kim about her father, who had suffered a brain injury and was really suffering from isolation in his new nursing home. At that point, she noticed that Nelson Mandela was listening intently, and she looked at him and said, Of course, you would know all about isolation from your time on Robben Island. She had actually visited the prison off the western Cape of South Africa, and she had been inside the cell where he had lived for almost 3 decades, often undergoing solitary confinement. His reply surprised her. "No," he said, "I have never been isolated. On Robben Island, we were all brothers working together with a common purpose. I was never alone." This was a revelation. You can be physically isolated, yet having a purpose creates real experiences of belonging and connection. Some of us found that in the isolation of the pandemic, even separated from one another. When we had a common purpose, it drew us together. Each day, Kim Samuel writes, Mandela and his brothers served the cause of his people's freedom. Together, they built a powerful sense of solidarity and belonging that endured the harsh conditions of prison. Wherever is your heart, will find home. Do you believe it yet? Have you said it enough times that you believe it? We often think that people and place are the only routes to community. We forget about purpose. In her poem, The Low Road, Marge Piercy speaks about the power of people who are grounded in purpose. She writes, "Alone you can fight, but they roll over you. But 2 people fighting back to back can cut through a mob. 2 people can keep each other sane, can give support, conviction, love, compassion, hope, sex. 3 people are a delegation, a committee, a wedge. With 4, you can play bridge and start an organization. With 6, you can rent a whole house, you can eat pie for dinner and have no leftovers. And you can hold a fundraising party. A dozen makes a demonstration, 100 fill a hall, 1,000 have solidarity and their own newsletter, 100,000 your own media, 10 million your own country. But a community starts with just 2, back to back, guided by a shared intention, vision, principle, and promise. This came up in our Common Read discussion less than 2 weeks ago as we read together the book Mistakes and Miracles. The next discussion is March 16th. Reading the stories of other congregations begs the question, what stories of mistakes and miracles would we tell in this community? Here we go. That's when the stories, for there are not just one story, the stories about changing our name came up. And I have heard especially many new people say, why do you all keep talking about changing your name? Like, what's the big deal, right? On the surface, it's no big deal. We changed our name. We've changed our name 5 times, the Unitarian Church and Summit, then we were All Souls, then we were Community Church, then we went back to the Unitarian Church and Summit, and now we're Beacon. Looking deeper, however, you discover, especially when you hear these stories, that each of those changes told a story about who we were and what mattered to us. Together, that Thursday night, we were told some of those stories for those of us who had experienced it. In the late 1990s, a group of members came forward with a common purpose: to change our name. The word church was difficult, and they felt it falsely represented us. They also wanted to add universalist. Many of those members of that organizing group were raised in Jewish households. Others had harmful experiences in Christianity, and still others felt more closely aligned with our universalist theologies and felt that universalism, as the poorer denomination, often got dropped out of our name. The vote to change our name failed not once, but twice. The second vote occurred at the end of my first year here and Tuli's second year at Beacon in 2006. Both times our community was pretty evenly split. The vote was close. It was devastating to the organizing groups, many of whom had come from marginalized communities, because it felt like a rejection of who they were. As one person said about the first vote, there were bodies in the aisles. One of our newer members, present at the Common Read discussion, asked, well, so how did you end up actually changing your name? And we really had to think about this. What was the change that made it possible. By 2017, I think our game changer was our mission statement, created and voted upon in the late 2000s. I'll never forget the day in about 2015, 2016, when Marty Rothfelder approached me, he's a member of the congregation, and said, "Emilie, it's time to reconsider our name." I did not want to do this. Marty was president of the board for the second vote. And I was like, are you kidding me? The congregation was in the midst of a transition. We had 2 ministers leave. We were barely holding on. Were we really going to have more bodies in the aisle? Is that what we wanted to do to ourselves? I was kind of shocked. But then he turned to me and he said, just really simply, our name isn't radically inclusive. It's not even inclusive. In 2017, it wasn't one minority group that was grounded in purpose. We were now an entire congregation living out a mission of radical inclusion, of feeding the human spirit and healing the world. And we had to reckon with, are we going to live in to the aspiration of our mission? Wherever your heart is, will find home. Which leads us to the second factor we forget about when thinking about how a community is built, and that is power. Belonging, writes Kim Samuel, is also found in our capacity to participate meaningfully in the decision-making structures of the broader whole, our agency and our ability to collectively determine our shared future. It's all bound up in this dimension of belonging. I'll be honest, power is a tough one for us. We're only at the beginning of understanding it. We don't like to think we have power. We like to flatten everything so that it feels like it's all equal. But that means we're not examining the fact that lots of us hold power, and then we end up using it to harm rather than to heal. So over the last several years, our leaders have been really beginning to lean into these two dimensions of belonging, purpose and power. And I want to say, I think we've gotten it wrong more than we've gotten it right. But nevertheless, we are learning and repairing, and becoming more grounded and more committed to what our mission asks of us. After all, our common read book is called Mistakes and Miracles. Our Spring Forward event, it's called Spring Forward Together often, is drawing near. It's on March 11th, on the night that clocks spring forward. I don't know if you'd put those two things together. I just want to make a note right now that I'm preaching on March 12th. And I do expect you to show up on March 12th. I hope people are here. But March 11th, I'd love to see you there. As all of you hopefully know by now, we've been sending postcards. It's going out in every form of publication we can manage. It is an event where we all gather to bid on and purchase goods and services, dinners and getaways that we as a community have donated. It's Beacon's one and only fundraiser outside of members' financial commitments, and its goal is to raise $35,000 this year to meet budget. I can't help but hear the words of my college roommate when this event comes up. I'm not buying my friends. Partly because I have heard that same response from some of you. Taken alone, on the surface, it is a fundraiser with the goal of raising a lot of money. And as the bidding rises each year, many of us, myself included, are priced out. There are still a few dinners I have not been able to get to, no matter how much I save, which means we miss out on a lot of fun community events, and it can feel exclusive. Like the only people who have access to community events are the ones with money. If this has been your experience, if you have felt priced out, I want to say I'm sorry. I want to honor that feeling. We weren't paying attention to power. We were paying attention to trying to meet our budget. And I'm sorry for that hurt. That's not who we want to be. We are working towards repair. What has opened my heart are the leaders of this event and the leaders of our board who are leaning into those two dimensions of belonging, purpose and power. They are embodying the spirit of that youth alumni all those years ago who said to me, what I learned is that you have to look for a community that is guided by a purpose close to your heart. Leaders like Bettina and Stacy, who are listening in the foyer because they're selling tickets to you all, Chris and Laura last year, Meg and Karen in years past, all of whom are volunteers who, on top of their day jobs and their family commitments, take on almost another full-time job to pull off this event. They do it because the mission, our mission, gives them purpose. It's going to fund that mission through our ministries. Ministries like worship and music, like we've heard this morning, our children and youth programs, chaplains and social justice ministries, just to name a few, all the things that we care about, it funds. And it also funds our staff who lead and support our ministries that our leaders want to invest in, ensuring that our staff has fair wages and health care. Our leaders are aligned with our mission and our covenant, centering love. And so they wanted to know early on, can we create an event that leads us deeper into relationship, that teaches new skills, that gives people powerful experiences, that strengthens our community even as we raise money? That purpose, they say, is worth the effort. So, beloveds, I want to assure you that they haven't forgotten about power. Each year, the leaders take the end of Marge Piercy's poem seriously when she writes, "It starts when you say we and know who you mean, and each day you mean one more." Bettina and Stacy have been striving to create an event that allows us to share an experience of belonging that gives all of us the capacity to contribute to our shared mission. That is why it's called Spring Forward Together. And so I just want to highlight 3 key changes that have been made. First of all, the evening is meant to be a fun night out, whether you bid on anything. A fun night out, dinner, children's programming, and a concert for you to enjoy with Beacon's own musicians. Not these fabulous musicians. We have more fabulous musicians. We are also offering more and more fixed-priced events like chili cook-offs and ice cream socials and musical cabarets that are accessible to all budgets. And this year, you might not know, there's a raffle. So for $5, you can now win a spot or 2 at the pricier events that go off at the auction, including buying this sermon, which David Gordon did last year. If you hated the sermon, blame him. Finally, your gift, your participation to Spring Forward might not come in the form of money. It might not even come in the form of a donation, but we know that everyone has gifts to offer. We are tied to that. And it takes over 50 volunteers to make Spring Forward happen. Our friend Marty hasn't ever bid on an item. He leads a rockin' children's program with magicians and face paint and games. Heck, some of you would probably prefer to go to that than to be up here. He even gets free pizza and homemade ice cream. But I've always admired for the way in which he has led with his sense of purpose and made sure that he is participating in a way that feels authentic to him. It's a start. Is it perfect? We're not striving to be perfect. We're striving to get it right as we can. And we'll never be finished because each year we're determined to know who the we is and have that we include one more. After all, wherever our heart is, we'll find home. Amen. Let this be the ground of our belonging.
Our closing hymn is going to be 1028, and I invite you to stand in body or spirit and join Melanie, Joelle, Dennis, and me to sing 1028, which is the fire of commitment.
You can press it.
From the light of days remembered, burns our beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our minds and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Hello. We now get ready for our benediction. If you feel so, you can put your hand on your heart, or if you want to, you can reach out and actually touch each other and give hands.
As we head out into the world this day, we invite you to carry the flame of this chalice, extinguished in this room, but taken out into the world to bring our mission of radical inclusion, of feeding the human spirit and healing the world out into our lives. So may it be. Amen.
Amen.